A lot of my content doesn't get a ton of views. If you go through my page, you'll see that, but I'm consistent with it. I wouldn't make virality the goal. I would make self-expression and consistency the goal. And a natural side effect of that is that you end up building trust with potential clients and you ultimately end up booking more tattoos. Welcome back to the Artful Dollar. My name is Ryan Roy. If you are new here, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about some content critiques of some tattoo artists, a few that I've worked with, one that I have not worked with, to show you the type of content that is really working on Instagram to get more views and ultimately to book more tattoo appointments, specifically with tattoos that you actually want to do. All of the tattoo artists that I'm going to cover today primarily focus on American traditional tattooing. The reason I am going to focus on that today is while there are all these amazing styles of tattooing, I feel like obviously we want to honor the tradition, but how do we do it in a way that is true in the modern era of tattooing? And so I felt like that would be a great topic. They're not like trendy new styles of tattooing that might be getting views because there's some cyber sigil something that is just like popping off on TikTok. These are tried and true tattoos expressed in a new way through the medium of social media. Also, just a little update on me. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while, or if you've been watching it particularly on YouTube, this is the last time I'm doing it out of this studio here. A lot has been changing in my life. I've not been as consistent with this podcast. I normally do a new episode every single week, and I definitely plan on getting back into doing that. But I recently purchased a house in Rhode Island, which I am so fucking stoked about. I'm building out a whole new podcast studio in that house. I live between two states. I live between New York City and Rhode Island. My daughter lives here in New York City, and so I always have an apartment here. So I'm moving apartments. I'm getting something cheaper here in the city to make it easier to afford the mortgage in Rhode Island. One of my favorite financial content creators, Paula Plant. She's got a podcast called the Afford Anything Podcast. And her slogan is, you can afford anything, but you can't afford everything. And so while I do believe that we should invite as much abundance into our lives, and I don't believe that we should do it in a way that puts financial strain on us. And so minimizing in one area of my life to maximize and live into the manifestation that I've dreamed of for years, of living in the house that I own with the woman of my dreams, though my wife, I don't talk about her enough on this podcast, but yeah, it's just been a dream come true. And I will just say that as a knucklehead tattoo artist who started his journey in street shops, doing walk-ins, slinging scabs, I never thought that I'd be able to achieve the levels of success with the work that I do here at the Artful Dollar and on the podcast and in coaching and in tattooing and in my whole life. So everything that I teach is something that I practice. I teach the practical principles of marketing and money, but I also teach a lot about mindset. And I honestly think that it has been cultivating an emotional relationship with money and with marketing that leaves me free to be authentic, which is something we're going to talk about when I'm going over these content reviews. Authenticity. It's been that mindset that has ultimately led me down the crazy wild journey. I never in a million years would have thought that I would have a podcast episode coming up on close to 100 episodes, which is insane, nuts, insane. Yeah, I'm grateful for it. I never could have seen it coming, but it all is from removing those blocks that stop me from expressing myself authentically, leaving me with more freedom and less fear to just go out there and say the damn thing. Say the thing that's in your heart that you want to say, that you might be unsure if it's going to land well with other people. Maybe you're afraid that other people won't understand you or they'll judge you. It's not about finding authenticity. It's about removing all the things that block your authentic expression from coming out. So anyway, I just led a whole mindset lesson in the Artful Marketer program on authenticity. So that's what inspired this episode. Without further ado, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to get to see what I'm talking about. If you're just listening, you're going to get a lot out of it as well. I'm going to explain what I'm looking at, what I'm talking about, but I think you might actually get a little bit more out of going to the YouTube channel, so maybe check that out if you haven't. I'm a big believer in synchronicity. If you aren't familiar with that term, or maybe you've heard it around, but you're not really sure what that is. It's a term coined by Carl Jung, who I've done a whole episode on in the past. And it is pointing to the fact that there are situations and circumstances that seem to arise between two happenings, two parts of our life that don't have any inherent correlation, but somehow yet seem to be correlated nonetheless. And so right after teaching this lesson, actually right before teaching the lesson and getting ready to talk to my students about tapping into authenticity, which is so important in marketing, because at the end of the day, all we're doing is we are communicating something in a way that transfers an emotion, and we want that communication and that transfer of emotion to feel authentic. And I would say that maybe I'm qualified to talk on the topic of authenticity, not because I think I am, but because that's what I hear from tattooers who I either speak to on one-on-one calls or in my program or just DMs on Instagram. I ask people, what resonates with you about my content? And they say, it feels authentic, it feels honest, it feels confident. And if you, whatever your authentic expression is, were to come off confident and honest and authentic, I guarantee you would get more clients. And so that's the content we're about to share today. But synchronicity is that one of my favorite tattoo artists, and I'm going to share my screen here, Steph Bastian, who I purchased one of his paintings a little while ago, and I feel so ashamed that I haven't framed it yet, but I'm really excited to frame it. I might even use it in the next podcast studio. He did this post today. He says, "Human beings, not human doings." And I'm just going to read it real quick if you're not watching it on the screen. He says in the caption, and I really loved what he wrote. So Steph, just shout out to you. I don't believe he does his podcast anymore, but he had a podcast. Just one of the artists that I really admire and respect. He said, "A friend recently mentioned this, something we often forget, that we are human beings, not human doings. It hit the spot. In a world focused on status and accomplishments, we often tend to search for validation externally through what we do. We scroll through social media, seeing impossible standards of art and finances and bodies and performance, and unknowingly internalize them. This constant comparison is the silent thief of our creative energy, our capacity for genuine appreciation, and our sense of basic fulfillment. Striving to get better is a noble pursuit, but it has to be for a genuine reason and backed by self-compassion, inner dialogue, big part of what I'm talking about recently, perspective, and gratitude. Gratitude, by the way, is the emotion or the energy of receivership. When we are grateful for what we have, we are more likely to receive more of what we want to be grateful for. We often practice wanting what we don't have, and very rarely do we practice gratitude for what we do have. And in that paradoxical nature of reality, the more we are grateful for what we have, the more we end up having what we are grateful for. The truth is you were born already enough. Your value isn't contingent on what you achieve or what others think. True self-realization is a process of elimination. Remember, I said removing that which, that's why I felt this was so synchronistic, removing that which blocks us from expressing that authenticity. So it's a process of elimination. In the words of Antoine de Saint, I'm going to mess this last name up, Exupery, I don't know who that is, but his quote is, "An artwork is not finished when there is nothing to add, but when there is nothing to remove." And I feel like my tattoos really took a transformation when I realized that it wasn't about what I added to the tattoo. It was about where I didn't tattoo, with the negative space, the openness that I left, especially in the black work illustrative style that I did. But I think in tattoos in general, a good tattoo is about where you choose not to tattoo, what you choose to leave behind, not what you choose to add. Or another quote that he has, John Maeda, subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful. I love Love that quote. Is creativity what you aspire to? Kids are the most creative. They aren't they? Like them, to be more creative, you need to be less productive. Another paradox. I love paradox. If that means to take a break, no need to feel guilty. What about general happiness? Society wants us to perpetually produce and consume in an endless cycle designed to keep us wanting more. Happiness in this context isn't the goal, because a deeply content person would not feel the need constantly to buy stuff and seek distractions, endlessly scroll. Let's break this cycle and reclaim our happiness by focusing on what truly ignites us, regardless of societal pressures or current trends. That to-do list will never end, as there will always be another painting, another project, another tattoo, as the horizon keeps moving instead of waiting to reach it to feel fulfilled and validated. How about we focus on the process rather than the goal? Who we please or what we're supposed to do, like, or look like. The counterintuitive surprise is that by letting go of the chase, you will attract and your work will get better. A reminder to that little voice inside that you are already enough, no matter what you do or don't do. I really love Steph's content. I feel like he is a great example of someone that honors the craft, the sacredness of the craft of tattooing, while also effectively adapting his marketing. But even I won't even throw the word marketing out, because at the end of the day, when your marketing is authentic, there is no separation between your authentic expression and your marketing. You're just being a human being. And the only thing that stops you from being who you authentically are and having that expression show itself, shine its light on social media or on your website or in emails or wherever you are expressed, the only thing that stops you from doing that are all of the programs and the things that you learned that keep you from expressing that authentically. You don't need to seek it. Remember, he said, stop looking. Sometimes being creative means stop being productive. And it is very counterintuitive, but it gives you space. Sometimes we need that blank space where we're not doing, we're not seeking, we're not chasing, to allow what is already naturally there to show itself, to arise, to reveal itself to you and to the world around you. So if you don't know Steph Bastian, his account is Steph, Stef_Bastian, Bastian on Instagram. Highly recommend that every tattoo artist give this guy a follow. I can't say it enough. I've just been a fan of his for years. I was on his podcast years and years and years ago. It was one of the first tattoo podcasts I was ever on. So shout out to Steph. Now, there are three other artists that I want to highlight today. One of them is someone that I just started working with. Like literally yesterday, we officially started working together. He did come to my Booked in 48 workshop, which, by the way, I led for the fourth time this week on Monday. And it was amazing. I mean, the turnout, we had over 100 tattoo artists sign up, which was crazy. We had almost 100 people show up. And we had people booking tattoos the same day as the workshop. People were DMing me like, Ryan, I just booked an $800 appointment. I'm talking with a couple other people. And it all comes down to the communication. That's really what that whole workshop is about, is how do we communicate using the medium of social media in a way that resonates and connects with our ideal clients. That's it. And that's all marketing is. It doesn't need to be more confusing or convoluted than that. But Coltron, let's see, is that his Instagram name? Yeah, Coltron Tattoos. Check him out on Instagram. When we first met about a month ago, he had about 4,000 followers. He's doubled his follower count in about a month, which is insane. And I'm going to show you exactly how and why he did that. Not only that, he told me yesterday, and I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this. I'll check in with him before I post this, but he shared me some numbers, and it was pretty outrageous because all he had done was taken the Booked in 48 workshop, and then that lit a fire there. I also give people a mindset lesson in addition to the workshop, and a lot of people have told me that the mindset shift that happens during that lesson had a very big impact on the actions that they take. Again, why I'm so passionate about mindset. So he did a lot of videos. First of all, I always have everyone do an introduction video, and that's one of the things I teach in that workshop. You can check his out. I think it's right here. Let me see. That's not it. I don't know where his is. It might. Oh, you know what? It's probably further down. But what? So here's what I want to share: is just like drawing. When you start to make content, you start to come up with more ideas for content. And so he decided that he was going to make a bunch of content just showing the drawing process. And this is something that I teach. Don't just post the finished product, show the process. And I want you to, if you're looking at the screen, if you're not, I'm going to explain to you what we're looking at. We're looking at a series of, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different posts on his page where all he's doing in those posts is he's drawing. And he's showing a video of the drawing, and then he did a voiceover talking about his drawing process. And now what I want you to notice here is that some of these got 110,000 views, 107,000 views. I'm going to get right back to this episode, but I just wanted to take a moment to speak to anyone that's feeling a little stuck right now in their tattoo business. Maybe you've noticed things have been slowing down a bit. Maybe things are pretty dead out there. I've talked to hundreds of tattooers who are experiencing that right now. A lot of changes have happened in the tattoo industry, and we either adapt with those changes, we learn how to grow in a saturated market, or we get left behind. And for anyone that is interested in actually having a marketing strategy conversation one-on-one with me, there is a link in the show notes with more details on how to schedule a call so that we can get you clear on what your next action is in helping you book more appointments consistently. So whether that is me giving you an assignment to do on your own, or we want to talk about what it looks like to continue to work together, either way, you're going to get the clarity that you need to take the next action in your business. So check that out. I do charge a small amount for these appointments, but like I said, even if it helps you book just one appointment, it will be worth your time, energy, and money. And I look forward to getting to chat with you. So check that link out in the show notes, and let's get back to this episode. And now what I want you to notice here is that some of these got 110,000 views, 107,000 views, 20,000 views, and then some of them got 1,000, 2,000, got pretty low views. But the fact that he took a format, which was very simple, and you can literally go to his page and look at it and do it yourself. He took a format where he knows it's going to work, but the nature of social media, you don't know necessarily why one worked better than the other, and it could have been the way you said this, or the way you started it, or the narrative is pulling them in more. Maybe it's a little more relatable or simpler for them to understand. He stuck with it, even though they weren't always getting, knock out of the park home run views. You might post 20 or 30 videos, and only one of them ends up getting, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 views. But the other videos that you posted aren't a waste of time either. A video gets 1,000 views. That's 1,000 people. Imagine 1,000 people in a room checking out your artwork. That's huge. And then when you group the 8 or so videos together that he did, they got 1,000, 2,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000. There's a bunch of smaller viewed posts, collectively over 10,000 views. It just didn't happen in one video. And so it's the consistency that helped him get more eyeballs. And then he learned something from some of the videos. So here, let's watch one that got 110,000 views. What's interesting is it seemed like 1 week he did one that got over 100,000, and then the next week he was able to hit it again. And so he's learned something from this process. But let's watch it together and let's talk about it. And so if you're not watching this, if you're just watching, if you're listening from home, he is breaking down how he draws a peony in such a simple format. So when you see the finished product, it's kind of magical, but what's really magical is how it came to life. And the drawing itself is not the most amazing drawing that I've seen a tattoo artist post on Instagram, but the fact that he is talking about and showing you the process That's the magic. That's the engagement. You want to see what happens next. You want to see how he does it. You want to learn his process, because even if you're not a tattoo artist, especially if you're not, now I'm sure a lot of tattoo artists viewed this and thought it was great content, but your clients want to see and learn from your process. They want to see how you do something. And in educating them on your process, you become an authority in your field of tattooing or whatever content you're making. And that builds trust. And people are then going to go, they're more likely to go to the guy showing the process of how they do the thing, also because that content's going to get viewed. And they're more likely to go to that person than the person that's just showing the finished product and not actually showing you how it all happened. It's like a magician, you know, that show that used to be on TV where that magician would wear a mask and he would reveal how the magic tricks were done. That show was so interesting. Like, the magic trick's cool, but showing how the magic trick happened, that's what he's doing in these videos. And any tattoo artist can do this. If you draw, if you like to draw and you're passionate about it, I hope you're passionate about drawing, if that's what you do for a living. He's really actually transferring the emotion, his passion, the years of expertise, of practice that he's put into his craft, and then he's sharing that passion through showing you how it's done. That's great content. That builds trust, that gets views, and then he's starting conversations and building relationships with those people. Now, some of them will book a tattoo very soon. Some of them will book one next week or next month, maybe even next year. But the more consistent we are with content that builds that trust and connection, the deeper the pool of warm and hot leads that are ready to, someone could follow you and not get tattooed by you for 6 months. But what happens between the moment they hit follow and the moment they book the tattoo, if they are never seeing your content, the likelihood of them actually booking that tattoo drops down to close to zero. And so that's why tattoo artists should be making content. So yeah, not only was he able to double his follower count, but he went from doing about 4,000, he said 4,000 to 5,000 a month, to hitting over $15,000 a month. And that is just after he did move to a new shop. So I'm not going to take all the credit. He did move to a shop, and he said the shop was busier, but he did say a lot of it had to do with the tools that he learned in the Booked in 48 workshop, and just literally getting out there in front of eyeballs and shooting your shot. You never know who's going to see it and what video is going to pop off. Our next artist is someone you might have heard me talk about before. I got to work with Chris Cockrell for almost a full year. He is a 20-year tattoo artist on the West Coast. He also is a tattoo machine builder. He specializes in Japanese and American traditional tattoos. And when I first started to talk to Chris, he told me that making content was worse. Like, he would rather just gouge his eyeballs out with a fork than actually get in front of the camera. And he is real proof that any tattoo artist, no matter if you're younger or older, you can use the medium, the most powerful marketing tool on the planet, which is currently social media, and one day it'll be something else. But right now, that's what it is. It used to be television. It used to be websites and emails. It used to be the radio, right? This is going to change and adapt. And if you are a business owner, and if you are a tattoo artist, even if you work at a walk-in shop, you are a business owner. You own your own business and you operate out of another business. If you're a business owner and you're not at least somewhat interested in adapting your marketing to the changing market, then you're going to get left behind. That's the pattern that we've seen throughout hundreds of years of business. So he here has his intro video. He's showing his process of tattooing and drawing. And now I want to point out that while Chris actually has a lot more followers than Coltron did, he's got 22,000 followers, his videos aren't necessarily getting, tens of thousands of views, right? Sometimes you see an 8,000, here's a 16,000, and something I'll do, and that you can do too, is just looking through tattoo artist pages and looking at the content that got more views, and then seeing, could I make something that's like that? Why did this get more views or engagement? Was the hook really good? Was there a good question that was asked that got the viewer to stick around a little bit longer? You can learn a lot from just looking at the content that's getting the most views. But what I want to point out is that he was so consistent with making content that it doesn't matter if it goes viral or not. I'm actually not interested in virality. I'm interested in authenticity. And again, the only way that we accomplish authenticity is one, through practice. You kind of have to make bad content before you make good content. The stuff he was making when we first started working together a year ago was nowhere near as good as the stuff that he's been making now. He's started to have fun with it. And I asked him a couple months ago, I said, Chris, on a scale from 1 to 10, how horrible is the experience of making content now compared to how it used to be? And he said when he started, it was a 1. It was lower than a 1. And now he actually enjoys it. It's up there. It's a 9 or even a 10. He's literally enjoying the process. And when you enjoy making content, when it's not just a burden, that comes through. The emotion of, oh, I'm having fun here. I'm having playful, expressive, creativity is happening. I'm not just checking the box that says, okay, I did content. And now you might have to do that in the beginning, but when I started tattooing, I did some shitty tattoos. I wasn't actually having fun doing it. It was pretty stressful, and I was constantly worried I was going to fuck it up and what other people would think about the tattoo. But I kept doing it over and over again, and I got better, and eventually it was playful. It was fun. I've had some of the most fun in my entire life in that zone doing a tattoo where you're not even thinking anymore. You're just watching your hands do stuff, and it's this magical moment. Content is about tapping into that same flow state of creativity. That's what good content is about. Even if you don't end up, and some of my content, a lot of my content doesn't get a ton of views. If you go through my page, you'll see that, but I'm consistent with it. And a lot of the time what I've noticed is that some of the content that I make that doesn't get a ton of views will get a couple comments and it will resonate deeply with a few people. So what I like to look at it is that there's content that goes broad and shallow, like it's interesting to a lot of people. And then there's content that goes deep and narrow, and it resonates more deeply with a smaller group of people. And those are usually the people that end up becoming clients, because I've worked with hundreds of tattooers that a lot of them have had content that went viral, and they told me it didn't actually turn into more clients. It turned into more followers, but they weren't actually people that were necessarily going to end up working with them. And so I wouldn't make virality the goal. I would make self-expression and consistency the goal. And a natural side effect of that is that you end up building trust with potential clients, and you ultimately end up booking more tattoos. So check out Chris Cockrell's page if you're just looking for any ideas for content that you can make, or if you just simply need proof that an old dog can learn new tricks. Definitely check out Chris Cockadoo here. What's his page? It is Chris Cockadoodledoo on Instagram. Check him out. And now the last artist that I'm going to cover is Sierra, who she is up in Canada. Where is she? She's in Vancouver. And I've now worked with tattooers literally on every continent. We worked with tattooers in China, in Australia, all over the UK. So content is universal. It's not unique to one location. And she is also a really talented traditional tattooer. And now if we skim through her page a little bit, we do see a lot of tattoos here, a lot of videos of tattoos. And some of them are getting a couple hundred views. Some of them are getting a couple thousand views. But then we see, boom, that one got 13,000 views. And there's people talking in that video. We see this video, she's in a bathing suit. Okay, there's, going to be people that are more attracted to that's that kind of, but she's just being her authentic self. Okay, she's not, I hear that all the time, that tattooers are like, oh, well, if you're not some babe, shaking your shit on Instagram like that, I promise you, Chris Cockrell is not shaking his shit on Instagram, okay? It's not necessary. You can just be your authentic. You can embrace sexuality. You can embrace creativity. You can embrace spirituality. As long as you own it and it's authentic, it's good content in my book. I don't care what it is. And I'm definitely not into shaming people for sharing their, love of themselves and their bodies. Like, let's celebrate all of it, no matter what you look like. Please, for the love of God. I don't want to get comments from people being like, whoa. Here's another one, 5,000 views, 4,000 views. You notice a pattern where the videos that get the most views are the videos where she's just showing her face and talking on camera. And then there's images of tattoos. So collectively, again, here's one that got 22,000. And I think that's her introduction video. collectively, she's getting tens and even over 100,000 views. But it's not necessarily one or two pieces that did it. And the ones that get the most views are the ones where she's just talking on camera. So that is the content critique I wanted to go over. Ultimately, everyone's going to find what works for you. And I would just say, you know, it works when you're having fun doing it and it's making you money. To me, that's what works. If you're not having fun doing it, you might have to stick with it for a little bit to discover what's fun about doing it. And if you're having fun doing it, but it's not booking you tattoos, I don't know. I mean, fuck it, keep doing it. But what's really going to work for you is finding that type of content that you want to make that does both of those. So remember, again, whatever those internal fears or blocks are that are keeping you from expressing your truest, authentic self, from connecting with people, from building that resonant frequency vibration that transfers over the screen up into a satellite and back down into someone else's screen in their hand. It's kind of fucking amazing that we can even do that today. Take advantage of it. Why not? It's free. A last little perspective I'll leave you with is, if a lottery ticket didn't cost any money, how many lottery tickets would you scratch? You'd scratch as many as you could. Content is like that. It doesn't cost anything to make content. It might cost some of your time, and 1 or 2 or 10 might not get you the result that you want. And don't give up at that point. That's where tattoo artists fail in their content, is they give up because they did it a couple times and they didn't get the result they want. It's the tattoo artists that are consistent and are willing to continue to put themselves out there on the line, even in the face of, oh, this might not work, the uncertainty. It's the tattooers that continue to do that reap the rewards, and the ones that don't, they don't, unfortunately. So I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode in the comments, or shoot me a DM on Instagram. And if you do have any questions or want to attend one of my future workshops, or even maybe work with me one day, feel free to hit me up. I would love to chat with you about that. And have a wonderful day. Take care. All right, if you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways for you to help other artists is to share this episode. Leave a review and subscribe. It helps other people find my channel, and you never know what a difference it might make for someone else. Plus, I will forever be grateful for your support, so I just want to say thank you and have a great rest of your day.